Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101, the show where we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, Vern Glenn of CBS affiliate KPIX TV in San Francisco. Russell Jackman is off today. He's in court, but not as a bad guy, defending
Not on
himself.
trial. He's
Not
just
on
in
trial.
court.
Yes, that's
Gotcha.
right. He's because
Right.
he is an attorney. So interesting. Well, we'll have to find out how his case went. And today's trivia theme is baseball for grandpas. Now, you and I
Okay.
are not grandpas yet, but
Not
these
that
are
I know of.
yeah. These you know what these are not like so old that you wouldn't get it. I think actually I think you're going to actually go 3 for 3 on this one. All right.
Okay.
All right. And I have just a few little topics that we're going to cover during the show here. Caitlyn Jenner opposes trans girls in girls sports. Thought that was kind of interesting. Makes sense. And in basketball, they give you a penalty or foul or whatever for taunting. That's not allowed. But baseball, they don't seem to have that so much, do they? Except for when you have fights coming out and suspensions.
Well, there's just so many unwritten rules in baseball, things that you're not supposed to do, and etiquette and stuff like that. So much game within the game. So I mean, I can see where, no umpire is needed because nobody wants to show anybody up because it could just bite you in the butt.
Well, I was going to say, if you got a hard baseball that can hoit quite a lot if you get hit with it, so the pitcher kind of controls what's going on there. Or they say like Ty Cobb had no fear about that because he was in the outfield. So well, actually, I mean, he'd have to fear when he was at the plate, but not like when he would go sliding into second and with the spikes up.
Right.
But you don't have to worry about that side of things. All right, we got a lot more stuff to cover when we come back. You are listening to Sports Econ 101. Don't touch that dial. We are going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown here along with Vern Glenn. Vern, you want to start off talking about the NFL draft?
Well, I mean, here we are in the aftermath of it, and all the speculation, all the opinions, all the arguments back and forth settled because these teams went out and they got the players that they had fallen in love with, and we knew that Clemson was going to get their guy. We knew that the Jets were going to probably go out and get the BYU quarterback, which they did, and then the 49ers at 3 went out and got Trey Lance over, say, Justin Fields, who slid all the way down to the Chicago Bears. So what's interesting to me is that in the case of the 49ers, they held all their cards close to the vest. I mean, they were not revealing anything. There were no leaks. And everybody thought, well, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, but nobody was talking about Trey Lance. And it turns out Kyle Shanahan had fallen in love with Trey Lance weeks ago. Weeks ago, Trey Lance was like his guy. And then so another North Dakota State quarterback like Carson Wentz goes on to the NFL and goes high. So the Shanahan said that Lance is not ready yet by any stretch of the imagination. Jimmy Garoppolo is the starter. They're going to have their first off-season training activities coming up in the next week or so, and Garoppolo will get all the reps and Trey Lance will learn, which is pretty much how it should be. And so I know there's a lot of I know he wasn't maybe the sexiest pick to the fan base, but there's a reason why these teams do their research and interview and see these athletes and eat it and breathe it 24/7. And Trey Lance is the guy.
And I appreciated Garoppolo's attitude. He sent him sort of a welcome tweet, so to speak. So he didn't seem to have any, hard feelings or anything about another quarterback coming in. Where's my job going? Because there has been talk about him being traded even back to the Patriots.
Yeah, and then speaking of quarterback grumblings and that kind of thing, the alleged report that Aaron Rodgers has told the Packers he didn't want to return the team in 2021, and so there's a whole lot of back and forth going there. I thought Aaron Rodgers, by the way, did a fantastic job hosting Jeopardy in the 2 weeks that he had. I mean, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
and here's a guy I've known since his playing days at Cal. So
Well,
the thing I like about Aaron Rodgers is he's never changed. He's always been the same guy.
how how old is he now?
Aaron Rodgers, I
Yeah.
believe he's 37. I know it's late 30s.
So you think
So
he'll pull a Tom Brady and go for another few years?
well, he takes care of himself, takes care of his body.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys. He's pretty much known as a stay in the pocket guy and can make it happen if he's chased out of the pocket. But he hasn't been laid out with one of
Yeah.
these helmet to helmet hits or anything like that. Too bad. So
No, he's stayed relatively healthy, hasn't he, during
yeah,
his prime?
I think Aaron. Yeah, I think Aaron can hang around for quite some time.
And Brady is still coming back, right?
Brady coming back. Yeah,
Amazing.
he's one of those all or nothing kind of guys. That's kind of his mentality. And I would think in the NFC, Tampa Bay will be the team to beat because they brought the band back together.
I think he's going to play till he's 90.
Yeah,
You just never know.
we'll see.
All right. So moving on here, Caitlyn Jenner trying to first from a political standpoint. Caitlyn is fairly conservative, I understand, but Republican, and is here in California. There is a potential recall for Mr. Gavin Newsom.
Gavin Newsom.
I was going to say I can't say the governor. That was Arnold. So just
That was
the
Arnold
governor.
Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
And so I guess first California's first has to decide whether or not at least there's a ballot up there has to decide should Gavin be recalled, and if the answer is yes, then
I think the rule is anybody can run for that spot. Anybody.
Yeah.
And so Caitlyn Jenner, born Bruce Jenner, once the world's greatest athlete for the 1976 Olympic Games, has thrown her name into the hat.
And it's funny because I wonder if if California says yes, Newsom should be recalled, could Newsom even run in that? Because maybe
I don't think so. I think he'd be out. Yeah.
He'd be out. Okay, so that's the first question. And then good old Caitlyn Jenner. It would be interesting because on the one hand is Republican, which is tough in the state of California, very Democrat leaning. But on the other side, then you've got the transgender issue, which is come on, you got to support the transgender person. And Caitlyn came out, hasn't said too much political stuff, I understand, but it did come out and says that she opposes transgender girls in girls sports. And I mean, this would be if there's anybody in the world who would know, I think it would be Caitlyn Jenner.
Sure.
Wouldn't you? Yeah, because now she's 70 something years old now, right?
Right. Right.
That's incredible. I mean, I still remember 1976 waving the flag, and it was America's
cover
king.
of the Wheaties box. I mean, he was the it guy.
Yeah. And so now we're talking 45 years later.
God, that's hard to believe. God, we're old, man. Yeah,
I know. That's crazy. I mean, I still remember the 72 Olympics when my mom said, during the summer when you're a kid, you just kind of, you want to play. But when in Munich, when they took over, the gorillas, so to speak, took over. My mom was telling me, Edward, don't go out and play. Come over here right now and watch what's going on TV because this is going down in history.
Yeah, and, life changing.
Mom, I don't want to see that. 12 years old, and all they're doing is showing kind of not too much going on TV. But I did watch it for a little bit, so I do have a perspective. But it's interesting because again, and I've said the same thing, and apparently science also says the same thing, that whether or not you change your gender, so to speak, you can't change that, or you don't change that DNA.
Yeah. And speaking of DNA, I mean, there's the track star, born a woman, but because she has high levels of testosterone, she runs into a whole lot of blowback.
But and we've talked about that before. It's like I don't think there should be any
mannish, I guess, when she performs.
Yeah, but I mean, you know what? Shaquille O'Neal was just tallish and big-ish. I mean,
right?
What are we going to do? Break his arm? So you only have to play with one arm? No, if it's a natural, God-given ability, and obviously, some people work harder than others. Some people have the talent but don't do
Hmm.
much with it. Other people have to work for it.
Right.
But if you purposely do an alter changing scientific, that's why I like the whole thing with steroids, right? That's not a natural situation, and people pump themselves full of stuff, and they have laws. They have rules against that.
Right.
So if it's a natural situation, hey, I say you just got the pick of the litter on that. You just got lucky. But just really quickly here, let's see, what do we want to cover here? But boy, it's so funny. I've got so many things that'll take longer than necessary. So we're going to just go ahead and get to our commercial break here.
Let's go to that first question.
Let's go to the break. Okay, for baseball for grandpas. All right. Even though this is an old question, you'll probably get this. In 1934, pitcher Burley Grimes was the last player to do what? All right. If you don't know it right away, then let me give you a little bit of a hint.
All right.
Okay, he was the 1934 pitcher Burley Grimes was the last player to be allowed to do what?
Okay.
Maybe that'll kind of help. All right. And when we come back, some other topics we want to cover about the Cowboys drafting Josh Ball. He's been accused of multiple violent events.
Oh my goodness!
All right. And Roberto Alomar, he resigned from the Hall of Fame board. Wasn't he the guy who spit in the umpire's face?
That's the one.
That's the one. Okay. I guess Sandy Alomar, because he's a catcher, he just minded his P's and Q's. All right. Stay with us. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown along with Vern Glenn. All right. First trivia question about baseball for grandpas. In 1934, pitcher Burley Grimes was the last player to do what? Or be allowed to do what? Figure old-time baseball.
Yeah.
And what basically when he was allowed to do this, so that after him, nobody was allowed to do this anymore.
Wow.
Remember, he was
did he do something? It's got to be something that he did with like the ball or something like that. And they're like, no, you can't.
Yeah, legally.
Was it spitball?
The spitball. He was legally allowed. He was the last one.
He was legally allowed to spit on the ball and wow.
Yeah. So I guess what happened was back in the 1800s, early 1900s, they kind of figured, hey, if you spit on the ball, you do things to it, tobacco and all that stuff, you can make the ball do weird things,
funny things.
And for some reason, they just kind of said, well, he was allowed to do it. And when they started to disallow it, they just said, well, let's grandfather him in. Kind of gave him a little bit of advantage. I'd like to see what his record was for those last.
So they outrule the spitball, except Grimes. You go ahead.
Yeah. And wow. I guess probably because he was like the last player to have thrown a spitball legally.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you imagine if, in the old days and they had that chewing tobacco? It's one thing to kind of do a little spit, but they, rub it with chewing tobacco and manure and all that other kind of crap.
But Edward, imagine being the catcher.
That's what I mean. It kind of reminds me when Lester Hayes played for the Oakland Raiders, and before they used gloves, which you would have thought that would have been kind of smart to wear sticky gloves to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
He had stick and they used to show the players on the opposing team, and they'd have all this junk on. I mean, it wasn't quite as gross.
Fred Biletnikoff, the Hall of Fame receiver, he was famous for it. I mean, you could just throw it to him, and the ball could hit him in the arm, and the ball would just stick.
It's sort of like those Nerf ball things,
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. All right. So going down the list here. Okay. So what I was getting here was talking about earlier in basketball, there's no taunting allowed. And I guess the way they do it is they, a free throw, there's ways to penalize a team for what a player does on that. But in baseball, they don't have so much. I mean, Here's what happened. The Reds, Garrett strikes out Cubs Rizzo, and he pounded his chest. Now, a lot of times, guys are just really quick in the moment, just like, whatever. Well, I guess in this case, he pounded his chest.
Yeah, you're in the moment. The whole adrenaline thing is going on. You're all pumped up. The blood is flowing. But some teams are like, hey, you're showing me up, okay?
Yeah.
take your strikeout and deal and be a professional and just
Yeah.
face the next batter. But
Eh,
these
eh,
players, the batter, the batter takes pride, especially in Rizzo, that takes pride in being able to, swing the bat and swing it hard, and when he connects, make special things happen, and then when they don't, and when you strike out, you feel bad enough, and you look over, and this guy's, pounding his chest,
yeah.
and then
Same
they got
thing.
then words were exchanged, and then a teammate seeing what's going on, he
Yeah.
stepped in for Rizzo, and then the bench is cleared.
And
No
the bench.
problem, but
No, and no bench is cleared, but no suspensions. And the funny
no.
thing is, uh, no suspensions for leaving the bench. But isn't it basketball if you leave the bench to get into some kind of fracas?
Yeah,
They
you can get a game suspension.
yeah.
Yep,
So I'm kind of wondering, maybe
and a
there's just
fine.
too many. Maybe there's just too many players in baseball. And they're trying to wait. Did you leave the bench? No. Did you leave it? There's too many.
Yeah,
You got
right,
to figure out.
right.
Because also in baseball, the batter, a lot of times, they'll hit the home run and then they'll flip the bat or they'll do something to show up the
Hmm.
pitcher. So it does kind of go back and forth. But I
And
just
then
thought that
last year when the Astros were in town to play the Oakland A's, there was the famous incident where Ramon Laureano had walked and he was headed toward first base, and he looked to the right, and then somebody said something from the Astros dugout, and Laureano thought they were talking about his mother, and then and then they got into it, and it was like a thing. Yeah,
I know,
crazy.
I still have a fond memory of watching, and this was when Willie McCovey was playing, and we were watching. I went to the game, the
Stretch.
doubleheader stretch
Hmm.
exactly. So this was probably, I want to say 1972, and there was some big fight broke out between. I don't remember who started what, but between the Cubs and the Giants. And there's Stretch going in there, and he's a very mild mannered person, but he's just big and strong, and you just see him kind of take guys from the scruff of the neck, and he's just throwing guys off the pile. Yeah, he's not gonna find anybody, but he'll sure
Yeah,
stop it.
yeah.
That's great. Yeah, but still back to
Speaking of
baseball.
McCovey, the
Yeah,
team he played for, how about the San Francisco Giants with the best winning percentage in baseball in
holy
all of the big
smokes!
leagues as we record this show?
Yeah, they're just a little bit up above the Dodgers.
Unbelievable. Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah,
yeah, hanging right with the Dodgers and the Padres. And hey, good for them.
yeah,
And I'm not sure if that's a measure of this world of sabermetrics and Moneyball and how Farhan Zaidi was able to put this team together, or if this is just a bunch of guys that are either playing at or above their level,
yeah.
and everything is just coming together at the right time.
Well,
I don't
the
know.
A's, the A's were, the bottom dwellers for a while, and then they just started
A's
putting them.
started off 0 and 6, and they had the best record in baseball up until a few days ago. And
Yeah,
even at that, they lead their division. So
yeah. So but the A's, they strung like a lot of games together, uh,
mhm.
for a winning streak. The Giants do that, or it was just like win three, lose one, win three, lose one, type of
Giants
thing.
have Giants have been winning series,
Series,
save
yeah,
for the Padres series, where they only won one game out of the 3-game series. But most of these series, they've been right in it and have been able to like scratch and claw and grind and win these series. And so,
yeah,
and then this new guy they picked up from the Yankees, Washman, he's just been knocking the cover of the ball, because I would think nobody in the National League knows him yet,
yeah.
because since he was in the Yankees organization for so long, so he comes on over. But I got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, here we are, early May, and the Giants are right there.
Well, hopefully they won't experience the old June swoon of yesteryear. It was
Oh yeah,
amazing.
well
How many years?
yeah.
As a Giants fan, there was always they called it June swoon. Doesn't matter
Hmm.
where they were in May. June was just always a very bad month for them. But it seemed like, I guess it was really 2010 when they got rid of that.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
when
yeah,
they won the
yeah.
World
Well,
Series.
those kind of swoons, I mean, they hit every team. It's just a matter of when. when it
Yeah.
happens. You just if you're the Giants and the A's, you just want to be able to stay in the relevant conversation toward the end of August. That's what you want.
Yeah, well, there's the famous Brooklyn Dodgers of 1951, right? With
Yeah,
Bob Thompson. Even that's probably one of the biggest letdowns, call it,
yeah.
of all time.
And
I
the
think my
Giants
dad.
came out of nowhere. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
I think my dad was crying for about 50 years on that one. Let's see. Okay, so now here's one. If I don't know if you saw the Andrew McCutcheon being called out of the baseline. I don't know if you got a chance to do that, but here's my question: if baseball won't use instant replay to overturn lousy calls by umpires, why have it? They should be able to challenge any play. It's kind of like football.
I've seen plays go to replay where it just seemed clear that
Yeah,
the call should go one way other than the way it's called, and then it goes to review and it comes back and it remains the same. I'm like, how do
yeah.
you miss that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. You hope there's no impropriety going on, but if you go back and look at that play, I mean, there's McCutcheon literally he maybe moves 6 inches, and he avoids the tag from the second baseman. He didn't
Okay,
run out of it. He ran straight from first to second. The second baseman just didn't happen to reach far enough to catch him, and then you can even look, where his base path is, and the umpire just so quickly called him out, and they didn't overturn that, because apparently it's not reviewable.
it's not
But
reviewable. Okay,
it's not reviewable. But the funny thing is, at first base, they called him safe, and then they went to replay and they called him out, and it was like they got a double whammy on that one. It was just incredible. So I'm just kind of wondering, it's like, if you're going to have instant replay, you should be able to have a coach's challenge type of thing.
Mhm.
Whether you use it, once or twice during a game, but that's a little frustrating. And McCutcheon took it in stride as the man he is. A little arguing, but then it was like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, Kutch is like that. He's pretty much like that.
He's a
The
good
way
guy.
the,
He's a
the way his
really good
demeanor
guy.
goes, and
Yeah,
and it's one game out of 162. So I would think I would think at some point something will happen in the Phillies' favor. Maybe when it's not supposed
yeah,
to be, that'll kind of average everything out.
yeah. I don't know. I really appreciate the demeanor, because that's the sort of thing that just would frustrate me. I don't mind losing, just if it's just a good hard game. But when something like that happens, and it's just like, there's no justice,
Hmm.
man. Okay, here's our second trivia question: baseball for grandpas. You'll get this one. In the 1960s, which speedster was the first modern day player to steal 100 bases in a season?
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, I figured it. Yeah, I did figure you know this one. All right, that's our trivia question. Stay with us. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Edward Brown, Vern Glenn. Here we go. Which speedster in the 1960s was the first modern day player to steal 100 bases in a season?
My guess would be Maury Wills.
And your guess would be correct. Yes, and as a Giants fan in the 60s, boy, we hated that guy. He was
Yeah, because
awesome, but we hated that guy.
yeah, you walk the guy, he's gonna steal second. It's just
Yeah.
you're not gonna get him.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see here. Okay. How do going back to football, how do the Dallas Cowboys draft Josh Ball? Apparently, he's accused of multiple violent acts against his girlfriend and was suspended by Florida State. I mean, what's the deal? They kind of pick and choose who they're going to, not just the Cowboys, but just in general. This guy's just accused of something, so we're going to wipe the record books from his name.
Hmm. Yeah, I think the key word is accused, and I wish we had our attorney participant here with us to kind of explain it further. But I think just simply the accusation, and the NFL is very sensitive about that. I mean, you can be accused of something, but they're very much up. We're going to let the legal process run its course, and then if it sways, against this guy, then we'll act. But if you put a simple accusation, they're not going to do anything. So the Cowboys just move forward. Then.
So if it goes from accused to
To convicted,
some kind of conviction, yeah, then what do you think?
Well, then
The
the
Cowboys have a
by rule, the Cowboys have to they have to drop him. Yeah, they have to. Because then it becomes a Roger Goodell league office matter. I mean, they will rule on that. You can't player in the NFL that's been convicted of a crime. You just can't do it.
how, for some reason I just feel like the Cowboys and a lot of times the Raiders are like this too. They'll just kind of like, okay, well, pat you on the head and go, okay, don't do it again, type of thing, even if they're convicted of something. I mean,
Yeah, but battery, no, not even no, not even. I mean, if it's Ted Hendricks of the Raiders just doing something crazy, kicking a guy in the knee or whatever, then yeah, don't do that again. But for
yeah,
something like that, I mean, this is like life type stuff.
yeah.
So
So this is 2021, and we're the rules have changed. I mean, can you imagine going back to the 50s or 60s or even 70s? Um, this kind of stuff, and obviously I'm not condoning any of this. I'm just saying it's just kind of interesting how society changes and the attitude, which, I mean, it should. There's no reason, like abuse your kids, abuse the animals, abuse your girlfriend, wife, or whatever. Yeah, that
yeah,
stuff
but
shouldn't be
I'm not naive enough to think that stuff didn't go on. But
No, that's
in
exactly.
those
Yeah,
days, there were none of these.
that's true. The phones.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
recordings. Yeah,
That's
every time we
a good
walk
point.
out the door, somebody's got a camera somewhere catching
Yeah.
something. So
Which is good. Yeah. So the thing is, I don't know if Josh Ball was anything actually recorded, or is it just right now? It's just strictly a he said, she said
he
type of thing.
said,
Okay.
yeah. I mean,
All right.
what
Well,
are you going
we'll
to do?
find out. Yeah. Yeah. Because what you hate is when someone at least gets wrongly convicted. That's really nasty.
That's the worst.
Uh,
Yeah.
That's the worst, yeah. And then Roberto Alomar, he's resigning from the Hall of Fame board amongst allegations of sexual misconduct. But interestingly enough, the Hall of Fame says that his plaque, because he made it into the Hall of Fame, will remain on full display
Hmm.
because he was in good standing when he achieved his accomplishments. And I think we talked about this last week where each private organization will handle things how they will.
True.
Was it LSU? The player for LSU, who they basically said we're just going to wipe his records clean.
Yeah. Yeah. They did.
LSU did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess they have the privilege of doing that because they're a private company. I guess I assume the Hall of Fame is the same way, right?
Yeah.
It's not a
You would
government
think so.
entity.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
kind of interesting how. I mean, I wonder how far that goes. I mean, what happens if there's pickets in front of the Hall of Fame for stuff like? Because I could easily see a lot of people, uh, protesting, keeping him there
Hmm.
or wiping the records. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that you get from peer pressure, so to speak, or the public pressure.
Well,
What do you think?
when it happens, it happens. I mean,
Yeah,
I would. I'm just trying to envision picketing in front of the Hall of Fame right now, but I don't think I don't think he's going to get like that. So
probably not. And it's funny because I still remember the time that Roberto Alomar looked like he purposefully spit in the face of, I don't remember which umpire it was, but uh, and it got kind of
didn't he say he was really trying to prove his point, and it just kind
yeah.
of came out. It's not it's not like a full long loogie out of his mouth
Yeah.
into the umpire. It's just yeah.
I think he got suspended for that for a couple of games, and I think he eventually apologized. I think so. It's been, gosh, that's got to be what, over 20 years
I
ago.
would have to fact check that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I still remember. The vision of him.
The slow mo replay of yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask you this:
Good.
this NBA, we're going to be close to the playoffs, and they're having this new, I guess, unpopular to the players system of getting into the playoffs, and that's with the teams that are seeded 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so the seventh seed will play the eighth seed, okay,
Okay.
and the winner of that one assumes the seventh seed, and then the ninth seed will play the 10th seed. The loser
To
is
see
out. The winner would play the eighth seed to figure out the
Okay.
last playoff spot. Now it's a whole play-in tournament type thing toward the season. The players hate it because they're like, wait a minute, we played 72 games and
Yeah,
all of a sudden we lose one and then we're done.
that's a
Before
good
the
point.
playoffs even start.
Very good point. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that is kind of
We
interesting.
get this tournament, this play-in game, but the players don't like it. But
I
they
get
but
it.
this is a new thing they're trying this first year to see how it
Yeah,
works.
I guess I mean it's always about money. So it's probably just
Well,
another
it's
basketball.
about money and it's about keeping teams from tanking to better their position for the next draft.
Okay, I can see that. Of course, if you're like
Because
not even number 10 or 11,
it's
then
usually it's the top 8 seeds in each
yeah.
conference, and then they play. So if you're 9, 10, if you're outside looking in, and you have no chance of getting into the eighth spot, the final playoff spot, then maybe you tank to try and get a better position for the draft lottery. But
Now,
now play in everything matters. If you're that ninth and 10th seed, they really
what if you're the 14th seed? I wonder how that works.
then you're looking at next year.
Then you're looking at next year. Yeah, I mean it's kind of like sort of like a wild card.
It
That,
is. It's like an
yeah,
extra wild card round. Exactly. Yep.
which
Loser goes
as
home.
yeah, which is as a fan, I kind of like it. I mean, wild card games are like in baseball. Sometimes those are the most exciting.
Yeah.
It's that one game to see who gets in, and then start your 3 to 5. Because again, when you're in, I mean, at least in football, each game is a one and done type of thing.
Mhm.
But baseball and basketball, you've got a series of either 5 or 7 games. So
Now what I don't know as we're just kind of chewing the fat here, just kind of kicking it around. Like what I don't know is in the NFL, if you become a wild card team and thus making the playoffs, you get a player's playoff share. What I don't know is if you're a team seeded 7, 8, 9, and 10, and you lose and you're out, do you not get any playoff money because you technically did not make the playoffs?
a good question.
Yeah, I don't know. And maybe that's one of the beefs the players have.
You'll have to ask Adam that
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
See what he says. You're on a first name basis with him, right?
Mr. Silver. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
just like a little red hotline like Batman, where you can just push the button and connect right to him.
Hmm.
Uh, Very interesting. Let's see, we've got just a couple of minutes before we cut to our last commercial break with another trivia question, which I think you'll know the answer to. I think so. Yeah, this one actually does go back way in time, but you may know in this for a specific reason. But
I know
um,
I know a lot, and there's a lot I don't know. So that's the great mystery. Depends on the
yeah.
question.
Hey, isn't good old Willie Mays going to be 90 years old
Wow, yeah.
today?
By the time this show airs, yeah, past his 90th birthday, which comes up on Thursday. Yeah,
Wow.
that's crazy. Means he was he was a little less than 60 years old when I started working in television in this market.
Wow. That's just
And
that,
now
that
and
that's
now he's 90.
incredible.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I still have great memories. It's just funny. He's just one of those guys where it's like when he came to the plate, you just knew you always had a shot. I mean, you always know you have a shot, like with any player. But someone who hits, you know, $150, you don't have too much confidence. But when Willie was up, your eyes were always right there because
Yeah.
you go, this could be it. This could be
Yeah,
it.
well, a mistake pitch is going to get hit, but even a good pitch is going to get hit. So
Yeah.
he was just that.
Or even just when he's in the field, if the ball doesn't get hit anywhere near him, then okay, you can't really do much. But I mean, I still remember him going in front. I think it was in front of Bobby Bonds, because he had a better angle at being able to
Mhm.
throw a guy out at home or something like that. And it's so funny. It reminds me of the old Bad News Bears, where I think his name was Kelly Leak, would kind of take over the entire, because he was the only good player on the team. And the coach basically told him, listen, any ball that comes near you, you're the guy who gets it. So he's cutting off. He's playing center field, and he suddenly, runs over to left field to catch the ball, runs over to right field to catch the ball. The other ball players are, what are you doing here?
That reminds me of a story I did on a softball team by the name of the King and His Court.
Yes.
You ever heard of the King and His Court?
Oh, absolutely.
Eddie Feiner.
Four players. Yep.
Yeah. He pitched, and then he had two guys.
Yep. First,
in the outfield,
pitcher, catcher, outfielder, and first baseman.
And he challenged the team. Hey, go ahead, try and get 3 out. Try and score on us.
When he would pitch blindfolded, too, and then he pitched from second base. I mean, it's funny because there have been some good softball pitchers over the years, but it's amazing nobody's actually come really that close. Sort of like a Babe Ruth. Nobody really kind of came close to Ruth until many years later.
Right.
Yeah, Eddie Feiner. Wow, I think he just died. I don't know, the last 15, 20 years.
I'm proud to say I was able to face him, and I could not. I mean, I couldn't hit him.
Wow.
It was hard. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I would have loved to hear that. Okay. Or seen that. Okay, here we go. Manager John McGraw. Remember him? I think they call him Little Napoleon, if I'm not mistaken, was most noted for having the helm of the New York Giants for 31 seasons. But which team did he begin his managerial career with? Interesting, huh? All right. I mean, there weren't that many teams back then, but you'll know the team.
Is it a team that's in existence today in the same town?
Yes.
No, it is. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a little bit more of a hint. All right, stay with us. Sports Econ 101 will be right back with some closing comments. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. Last time for today, I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn. All right, third trivia question. Manager John McGraw, Little Napoleon for many years ago, was most noted for having the helm of the New York Giants for 31 seasons. Which team did he begin his managerial career with? Which is kind of interesting because if you remember, they played in the first 1 or 2 World Series, and then they stopped. They didn't have a World Series, and I think it was 1903, because he had said, I'm not going to play against these bush leagues. I'm not even going to, have my team go against them. So there literally, if you go back to the early 1900s, there's 1 or 2 years where there was no World Series. Wow. Interesting enough. But the question is, which team did he begin his managerial career with? And it's a team that's still in existence today in the same city that we all know and love.
The Red Sox? The Boston Red Sox?
No. Where did you, if I remember correctly, where did you start your career?
Started in Richmond, Virginia.
So there was no. Come on, where else did you? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Baltimore.
The Orioles had a team at the turn of the century?
Yeah.
Really?
They sure did.
Okay.
Kind of crazy, huh? All right. Okay. Here's our thoughts for the day, or our puns for the day. So my wife my wife told me to stop stealing her kitchen utensils, or else. But that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Thanks, Elmer Fudd.
Very good. And I went to my doctor and said, "You've got to help me. I'm addicted to Twitter." And my doctor said, "I don't follow you." All right. You know, yeah. All right.
I don't follow. Yeah. Good.
As long as I get 2 laughs out of you,
that's a good one
for the day. That's a good one.
You got to help me with Twitter. I don't follow you. Yeah, that's
there you go. Yeah. Exactly. And I don't know if your kids like those puns, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Elmer Fudd. Oh, why?
Tune in. My kids would be like, "Who was Elmer Fudd?"
Oh, yeah. Please, no. Yeah. All right. Tune in next week to Sports Econ 101, where we'll be discussing sports topics from a business perspective and asking more sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week.
Good night, America.
So long.